What do you see changing in the world of human capital over the next 1 to 2 years?
I think what we're looking at is a question of proactivity. What we have had historically are lagging indicators fueling HR.
We were talking about providing a role whenever you're doing a basic ChatGPT or Claude, or some of them didn't even know what Claude was. So that was an early indicator to me. It was like, there are other things out there besides GPT.
The data science and people analytics teams took on these larger than life personas because of the centralization of information and the specialization of their skill set. The next point in the conversation is in the mental conversation is one of two options. One is just overwhelm. Like, well, there must be a tool, but what do I do? How do I find it? And you go looking online and everyone says, well, do you know about LLMs? Do you really know about Gen AI? Can you trust? It's just like this,
that's the biggest thing. Can you trust it? Yeah. Welcome back to the Human Capitalist Podcast. I am your host, Trent Cotton, the Human Capitalist, and today I have a fellow AI and HR junkie. So if you were following that hashtag or have that kind of a passion on LinkedIn, you have probably 9 times out of 10 seen my guest. She is one of the top voices on the topic. So Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Trent. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, why don't you give a rundown of your experience for the audience?
Well, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and for the past many years now, I have been co-founder at Included, which is AI native technology for HR data. And our customers range across the small to mid-size category, and we really partner with HR leaders who know that it's time to maximize the data-driven nature of their HR.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I've told the story a couple of times, but I got a lot of heat in early 21. I was on a panel or a podcast, I can't remember, and I just made a comment that I thought it was funny that those people who went into HR because they wanted to go into business but not majoring in anything math, that now they were being exposed because those of us that like math were kind of, thriving in the moment. With the pandemic, it really kind of brought HR analytics to the front and center and a spotlight that probably it wasn't ready for. So I know you've got a huge passion on that. I guess let's kind of kick it off because I see you as being a little bit of a visionary. So you're on that cutting edge of what's out there. What do you see changing in the world of human capital over the next 1 to 2 years?
Well, I think what we're looking at is a question of proactivity. Right. So what we have had historically are lagging indicators fueling HR. A lagging indicator could be really lagging, such as case law that was decided in the court system and then translated into HR policy so that we stay safe and secure. Or it could be lagging data by, quantities of a year to a quarter that provide us directional guidance on what choices we might want to make next. When it comes to the advent of AI, which is where I sit, what we're seeing is the ability to not only process and analyze millions of data sets quickly, but the ability to provide directional guidance and prediction about what's next so that HR can become more proactive.
Gotcha. So what's one piece of HR tech that you're watching that you think is going to have like the biggest impact on the industry?
It's interesting. I'll take that in two parts, right? So in fact, the most common use of AI for HR right now is I want to call it the automation of workflows, essentially. And that's really where folks feel safest. A lot of the big name companies are deploying AI that you can purchase that will automate, different kinds of experiences. If you wanted to partner with like a smaller, hardier organization that's more, in your corner, you might look at like Kinfolk as an AI tool. And that's really where we're seeing the most usage. And it makes a lot of sense because automating a workflow and having intelligent handling by an agent of workflows is a great use of an assistant in AI. Where I am obviously seated is within data analytics. So that's always going to be my primary interest. And I'm really interested in use cases where companies are harnessing their historical data and their current data in order to really look at sort of maximizing the biggest investment in the company. And when we see AI in that place, what we see is sort of 10xing the ability to understand where we're headed and why we're heading there, right? So, what are the drivers that are going into the numbers that we get to see on the screen?
So I want to go one step further in that. I think a lot of companies get the data and they do the analysis, but they really fall short of really tapping into the real gold. So how can organizations leverage AI and data analytics to create more personalized employee experiences?
Oh, I love that you asked that. So, I think there's a common consensus that the future of AI, the near term future, is personalized experiences for employees. I would argue that we're not there yet, and that it's something that we need to keep an eye out. Like, for example, if you have a child, that the child will eventually go to middle school and high school. You're keeping an eye out for that, right? And I think that the AI providing personalized employee experiences in a way that makes sense and feels authentic is coming. It's coming pretty soon. When it comes to getting the right information to the right people, that's a really interesting conversation. Have you talked much with your previous guests about democratization insights? Okay.
Mhm.
So, historically, you're familiar, Trent, with the sort of bottleneck of reporting, of centralized
Oh, yes.
reporting. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it's almost it's not just holding it, but it's almost like for a long time it was a source of power. It's like I have this information, you have to come and beg me for it, and now it's like screw you, I've got it on my own.
Okay, well, I love that you said that. I have a really favorite analogy around this. So the old model that we're starting to move away from is centralized reporting, right? The bureaucratic centralization of information. But what I like to talk about is how mythological the data science and people analytics teams took on these like, sort of larger than life personas because of the centralization of information and the specialization of their skill set. And so we see slowness when we see centralized reporting, and the CEO, much like the king, would issue, a question to all the people of the land, what is attrition? And then, like, the HR leader would go out on a horse to the like ivory tower where the data scientists or the people analytics individuals sit, and they would call and say, "What is attrition?" Right. And then the people analytics leader would cast spells, run different kinds of analyses across the data using tools that were just built for them to use in their castle alone. Right.
Mm.
And then eventually they would come up with an answer and call it down. Attrition is trending down, and they would ride back to the castle, so forth and so on. And this really harms the CEO when they need to do board presentations. And this really harms the CHRO when they need to be a trusted leader at the table. And so, with the advent of AI, what we're seeing is the democratization of insights, right? The AI can do level one analyst tasks so that everyone has instant information on the matters that are, top of mind.
And it's interesting because we've been in this to where we have to go and pull the data, and so many of us are just used to, all right, this is the problem that I'm trying to solve, or this is the answer that I'm trying to arrive at. Here's all the data. It's clean, it's not clean, it's structured, it's not structured. That's going to dictate how long it's going to take for me to clean it, put it in a format that I can understand and analyze it, so you can kind of back into it. And I think that, at least for me, it's almost just like it's a routine. Like I just kicked into it, and I think it was late last year. I was 2 hours into the analysis. I go, why am I doing this? Like, why? There are tools out there now that do this for me. So to me, that's been kind of the interesting behavioral change. Is just how do we leverage this so I can actually spend more time on the analysis, and coming up with strategies on how to improve the employee experience, or kind of the workforce planning aspect. Are you seeing companies kind of struggle with that same step in the process, like just trying to retrain themselves?
Yes, and I think it's interesting that you had that moment, right, where you're like 2 hours deep into the analyst project and you're like, this is not the right use of my time, right? And there must be tools out there. And I'd be curious to know, Trent, how did you solve that for yourself? Like, did you hit Google? Like, what did you do to find a tool?
Oh, I actually took the raw data, masked a lot of it because it did have employee data, and then just used a chat model to kind of go through and do the analysis. And this was, I mean, ChatGPT, some of the analysis, some of the deep research with Google, and what's the other one that I like to use for research? Perplexity.
Hmm.
I like it because I didn't have to go out and search. So I had my data set, I had my analysis, but then I wanted to compare to what's going on in the market. So for me, that was like the level up. So it wasn't just a behavioral change. It was, all right, now that I have all this free time, now I can actually look at what's the industry, because I think you may see this. I know for me, a lot of times whenever I'm talking to organizations, they're comparing themselves to themselves. We reduced time till from 67 to 62 days. Let's throw a party. All right, that's fantastic. But if I'm looking at like the iSIMS trend report, average time to fill is 49. You're way off the mark, But if all you're doing is comparing it to yourself, then yeah, the numbers can look good. So having that periphery view and being able to pull that in has been very helpful, at least for me, insightful. But I'm a nerd whenever it comes to.
Yes, you are a nerd. And this is so now we're on a topic that I am a little bit on a mission about. So, in that moment when you're 2 hours deep into your data analysis project and you say, well, gosh, there has to be a tool, there has to be a better way, right? I think for a lot of folks in HR, the next point in the conversation is in the mental conversation is one of two options. One is just overwhelm. Like, well, there must be a tool, but how do what do I do? How do I find it? And you go looking online and everyone says, well, do you know about LLMs? Do you really know about Gen AI? Can you trust it? Or it's just like this, like,
That's the biggest
no.
thing. Can you trust it? Yeah.
There's just like panoply of like voices online right now. They're saying, you don't know what you're doing. Be scared.
Mhm.
Stop using AI. Turn around, go back. And then you're back alone with your 2 to 7 to, 20-hour project. The other thing that folks are doing every single day, and you said ChatGPT, is they're taking, and you said, oh, the data was, private, it's HR data, taking HR data and putting it into ChatGPT. I mean, anyone, so you're looking with that face, but can we tell the truth? Is this a safe space? Can we tell the truth? Everyone,
Please.
everyone who's watching this podcast needs to understand that HR teams are unequipped with useful technology to analyze the data sets, and they know that the tools are out there. And so if you don't equip your team, what they're going to do is they're going to load it into ChatGPT. It's happening every single day. And pretending like it's not isn't helpful, right? It's more interesting to ask, how do I lift these individuals up? And that's really the role of AI, is to take away the 20-hour project of backbreaking analysis so that we can focus on, where your conversation ended there, which was the higher order questions. How are we ranking in a benchmark scenario specific to our own KPIs and our own revenue goals, right? These kinds of.
Yeah, and I do think though, if we back up 5 years, if I needed something like that and I wanted it in a secure playground, let's just use that terminology, I would go and apply for IT to kind of see if they have time to create something like that. I think with this evolution of AI, there is a very easy way that they can create that safe space, put that ChatGPT like model in there so that way you can still have the benefit but be able to do it in that safe space. But you need to know how to ask for that, right?
I think this is really where HR leaders need to enter the conversation, right? Like, you're sufficiently technical that you're using terms like, you need to put the chat GPT model into that place, right? It's very kind of analytical, even like mechanical, like you're picturing. And we really need HR leaders to identify, the 1, 2, or 3 business processes that their team is desperate to get handled by AI, to select that processes, to go shopping for the right tool, right? And to equip their team so that the team isn't going out back to chat GPT or anything like that. I mean, just the role of this new technology is to help us grow wings, is to help us fly and to be more empowered. And right now the conversation is so dominated by voices of fear or voices that are highly technical, that we have a less technical audience in HR that's saying, well, maybe I'll wait another year. Meanwhile,
You don't have that kind of time.
yeah.
But you hit on a pretty interesting point. I was at a conference speaking about just where I saw HR going by 2030. It was great, had great interaction, sat down. Not great because I presented, but just it was a great topic and there was a lot of energy in the room. That's how I judge great. But whenever I sat back down, it was interesting to me. I thought the baseline knowledge of AI was here, but like we were talking about providing a role whenever you're doing a basic chat GPT or Claude, or some of them didn't even know what Claude was. So that was an early indicator to me. It was like there are other things out there besides GPT. So I think there for people like you, people like me, and others that I can think of right off the top of my head, there is this passion of let's increase that base knowledge. Let's create that baseline that you should know this much about AI at least at this point. We're not talking about early 2023. We're well beyond that. It's time. So how do we bridge that gap from an education standpoint?
Trent, I just want to fight. I just want to fight with you about that. I just don't think it's true. I don't think that I know, right? It's just like I feel like very literal when I say that this, but I just like, on what premise do people need to learn more about AI, right? Is that really the end goal, is more education, right? I really think that so I'm a democratization expert. My background is in political campaign strategy in the civic sector. I'm now sitting at the founding table with my two awesome co-founders over AI that democratizes data insights, right? So really, I'm constantly thinking my whole career about engagement of humans so that they can take action, right? Not just engagement for engagement's sake. And I really, everywhere I look on this AI conversation, folks are like, well, you should be scared or you should learn more. And like, what if there's no should? What if AI is a lot like the advent of email and we just really need to start using it, right? Like, is it true that HR needs to learn more and more and more? Or is it true that they need help? And that it's time to start using the tools. You know what I'm saying? And so that to me gets very interesting because maybe they don't know about Claude, but if they know about the tool at work that 10x's their output or aligns the HCM data to the financial data such that they can make even smarter, faster strategy decisions. Fine.
So you don't think, because I guess whenever I'm thinking of some of the people that I've talked to, they just kind of throw in a trash prompt and they like see it doesn't work, and I'm like, you kind of need to know there's an art to it. So to me, there should be. I'm not. Whenever I say base knowledge, I'm not trying to figure out or say that someone should understand the difference between the different LLMs out there or the different strategies. You should know the difference between basic AI and agentic. Because that's you need. For me, I think that you need to know because if not, then the vendor's going to sell you, hey, yeah, we have agentic and it's not agentic. It's just a ChatGPT plugin, but you don't know the difference. You're buying the cool, sexy stuff. Or am I completely off base?
I let's go back to the top of what you said. You said, well, you do need to be educated because, you could put in a trash prompt and then we could get a bad result out and you could say, oh, look, the AI is broken. But I mean, friend, let's be honest, the AI is barely alive. And yeah, it's actually kind of broken. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
part and parcel of my argument, yeah, like, okay, so you're with it. Part and parcel of my argument is that we need to have higher standards for our AI, right? For our tools that we're bringing in, and we need to only pick the ones that are working, right? So if you put in a trash prompt, I'm so lucky to be shoulder to shoulder with the folks who built our AI agent and to watch their process, right? And our team made sure that trash prompts can be chewed up by our AI agent and that you can still receive, the QBRs, the MBRs, the data tables and the forecasts that you need, right? And not all AI can do that. And that's okay too. But if you're a purchaser and you go to market and you put in a trash prompt and it doesn't work for you, next tool, right? Like this is not the time to be adopting half-baked technology. And that's okay. Like if the AI is in its adolescence, just buy the good stuff.
Makes sense. Yeah, I could get on board with that. There is a topic though. I'm just going to ask. It's kind of like I'm going to throw a grenade over the wall and just sit on the other side and let you go for it. Because you and I talked about this a couple of weeks back. Why do you hate the term AI in HR? And go. Just the if you're listening to this on Spotify, you don't have the benefit of video. There was a hard eye roll. So, go for it.
How about email for finance? How about if you're listening to this on Spotify, Trent is laughing and covering his.
Oh my god. Oh, that one got me.
How about cloud computing for hardware? Right? It's like, great, congratulations. Like, tennis shoes for school children, right? It's great. It's people are like, it's it's such an insanely broad topic. I feel that there are so many HR teams that are striving to be data-driven engines inside their companies, and, like, there is a circus in town, and people are waving flags and beating drums and distracting and overwhelming a lot of HR teams with terminology that doesn't land. It doesn't add value.
Right.
It doesn't communicate anything, right? So talking for talking's sake is, she said on a podcast, funny face.
The irony.
It's not my idea of a good time when it comes to democratization and adding value.
Got it. So what would you replace it with? If you would replace it.
I would replace it with purpose-built AI for individual business processes. Pick your process, right? So folks should be saying to me, Laura, what does your AI do for my HR data? Folks should say, to All Voices, which is another great AI tool on the market, what does your AI do for employee engagement and, HR case management?
Mhm.
AI for HR? Blue sky for the birds. Yeah, it's just it was, and at the dawn of AI, a couple years back, maybe there was a reason for that term, but it's over.
Okay. So we should sunset that. I should stop using that hashtag. Got it. Tim
I
Ford.
don't mean to be confrontational with you.
You're not being comfort. No, trust me. You're talking to someone who enjoys not enjoys, but if I'm passionate about something, it's like whenever people ask me about time to fill, they get a hard eye roll on that one too. So tell me a little bit more about the problem that you're trying to solve with the company that you're with now as a co-founder.
Yeah. So whenever we have old-fashioned industrial mechanisms in play, we have slowness and we have high expenses to the business, right? We're harming the business. So that's all that we're trying to solve right now is, how do we unblock the centralized reporting scenarios that are embedded all around HR data? And there's this basic old-fashioned industrial model, right? There's the one person or the one piece of tech that has the data. Sometimes there's not even a person. And then occasionally you run across companies that have had the foresight and the resources to staff up a whole team. But there's this centralized, bureaucratic mechanism, and there's bottlenecks and lag time. And here's the thing is in the situations where there is a team sitting over that reporting mechanism, they're exhausted. The ad hoc reporting cycle, they're exhausted of being, the feeding trough for the whole company. Uh, because really it's typically level one analysis that folks want to know about when they're sort of, spamming that team. And so be it a company that has never tried out becoming data driven, or be it a company that has in their HR function, or be it a company that has attempted to become HR driven, there are too few instances where the CEO can get the insights they need instantly, where the managers are getting instant predictive forecasting that enable great hiring decisions, right? Where the CHRO is able to unblock their access to the data. Our platform delivers natural language, conversational information, not just the numbers. And so we're really looking at that dissemination and democratization aspect and getting the work done beautifully.
And I think you hinted a little bit earlier that you all are building kind of that agentic aspect of it into the platform, or did I hear that
Oh yeah,
right
no,
there?
it's live. It's live. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And that's actually no, I love it. But I mean, that's been one of the things that I have enjoyed with, just working early on with some of the basic chat models. And whenever I coach people on prompting for data analysis, I always tell them, I said, my favorite thing to tell the agent is, I need this, I need this, and I need this. And then I want you to give me three insights that I didn't ask for. Like, what are you seeing in the data that I'm not seeing? And I cannot tell you, Laura, how many hours I have lost going, why is our Gen X population not responding like this? And what's going on here? What That's interesting. It's like this little anomaly that I never would have seen because I wouldn't have had the time to really dig in, you know. So I like the aspect of your product of having that agent of saying, okay, this is great, but can you dig into this? Can you dig into that? And I'm assuming that it'll just kind of be like that little co-pilot for you, right?
So the short answer is yes, but I am gonna reach across the miles and give you an air high five because, in fact, what you're putting your finger on there is something that our product team spent a lot of time considering, which is so in the current bureaucratic centralized reporting model, sometimes our people analytics teams will create these dashboards with like a feed of information, like a static portal with new information that pops its head through the portal and says, I am attrition or I am hiring. Your favorite, I am how do you feel, right? And the information populates over and over again in that one static portal. Folks often struggle at the dashboard to make sense of what they're learning. And, we like to say decisions aren't made in front of dashboards. So when our team sat down to reimagine, democratization of insights, sharing the information that help people make decisions so that HR is deeply data driven. One of the core questions we had to solve for, Trent, is what you just mentioned, which is even if our agentic AI, our helper, is delivering the exact custom report you asked for, staring at that chart, no matter how perfect the chart is, can still feel confusing. So our agent always shares the three most important factors that are causing this chart to do what it's doing. And sometimes it also shares the context of how this has changed from 1 year or 1 quarter, whatever the important variable is, so that the decision maker is able to make decisions. So yes, you can always ask those follow-up questions, but we're presenting information a lot more the way a person would when they say, I prepared this deck for you, but as you look at this chart, I want you to understand. That's what our product team built.
That is amazing. Because there are times, I mean, my minor statistics in finance, I love numbers. But there are times like McKinsey and some of these others, they'll put a graph out or a visualization. I go, I think I understand what they're trying to tell me. So I can't imagine someone that just numbers is just not their thing, which is okay. Everybody's built differently. What they think whenever they look at this dashboard and go, okay, that's a lot of pretty colors. I think I know what it's telling me. I love that you all have kind of tapped into that and kind of built that advisory almost, and that person they can see the insights. How are clients responding to it?
I think the short answer is to say that we're seeing CEOs log in to the platform.
Oh, whoa.
Uh, yes, we're seeing chief technology officers log in because they want, when you get to a certain size of org, you want
Mm,
to be king or queen over your kingdom, right? You want to
yeah,
treat your
yeah.
teams well. You want to really own your numbers, right? And because of the empowering nature of this kind of tech, we're able to see these individuals taking deeper ownership of their own people, right? And unblocking them in that way. That's the first thing. The second thing I'll say is that the people analytics teams have started partnering with us um, on their most sophisticated, sticky problems because we took care of the groundwork.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, if they're in that kind of a department, they don't want to be running, like you said, the level one reports. They want to get in the deep, sexy, complex problems and really throw their brain power behind it, right?
Right, and I mean, of course, the answer is yes. And, a lot of the folks who are in the people analytics world are massively educated individuals. But not only that, but, what we're seeing with these companies, with our customers is it's kind of a career maker to bring in AI for the purpose that you intended it to. In our case, we sit in the HR data world. In other companies' cases, there may be other burning issues that are not HR data, right? But to bring in a high quality AI tool and to change the game, be it, as people analytics or as HR, or, we're seeing some very interesting accolades.
I can imagine. I worked for an international bank, and we implemented Visier
Yeah.
back in, oh God, that whole decade that I was there is kind of a blur, but it was early on. I mean, it was before I had to look up what machine learning meant, because they were doing prediction of turnover. And it was scary. Like, we went back because they had all your historical data, so you could go back and look and say, okay, who was on the report in January of last year, and then go and see when that person left. And we calculated it was about 93% accurate. It was insane. But you talked about just kind of this adoption. It was amazing to me to kind of watch how senior executives stopped asking HR for questions, and they were actually coming to the HR partner meeting saying, hey, I noticed this in the data. What do you think's causing this? Do you have any back data behind it? Because you and I both know, you start getting a little bit of data, a little bit of AI, it opens your mind to, well, what else can be out there? And I think that was, to me, behavior wise, it was really interesting for me to watch. And it sounds like you're saying, I mean, for a CEO to sign in, that's a lot.
Yeah, so 2 pieces. One is there's a lot of, good legacy software that was designed, a decade or more ago around HR data. But what we're seeing across every company is that, over time, legacy software gets very large, it gets heavy, it gets legacy. The and the legacy technology was originally built for the most sophisticated users up in their ivory tower, right? Such that, let's go to your scenario of the CEO and the HRBP, right? And the CEO saying, well, what do you make of this? And we can kind of guess that oftentimes that HRBP felt unequipped to have that conversation, right? And in most companies that we talk to the degree that there's any legacy, decade old software related to HR data, the HRBPs are not empowered to use it, right? And the results of those legacy softwares are not usable. And so really what we're looking at with AI technologies is the ability to have, an all you can eat buffet, all the modules at once, right? Everything in one beautiful symphony of a platform. And the ability for the most sophisticated technical minds to engage with the platform. And the HRBP can also engage with the platform, and they each get different kinds of help in the way that they need it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. So if someone is listening to this and they're really excited about what you all can bring, like where do they go get more information?
Well, our website is included.ai. And I'm active on LinkedIn.
Very easy to remember.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's great that way.
I love it. Well, are you ready for some rapid fire?
Let's do it.
All right. What is a book that changed your perspective on business and or HR?
The one thing.
Oh yeah, such a good one.
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many times I've used that clip from City Slickers. Is that it? With Billy Crystal and the Cowboys or whatever, and the older Cowboys telling Billy Crystal that's the one thing. He goes, "What does that even mean?" I love it. So what was kind of like the groundbreaking thing for you from that book?
I think, for folks who are on an executive journey themselves, any framework that helps you to get ever more clear on making one strategic decision such that all other decisions are improved is just a phenomenal mental go-to framework.
I love that. So how do you stay abreast of all of the changes in HR tech and AI? Like, do you have a podcast or newsletters that you go to? What's your source?
You know what I'm really loving right now is Pioneers of AI. It's a YouTube podcast. I have to go back and look up. It's terrible. I wish I could say, let's say that you'll put it in the notes of this, but I'll put it. This woman is an AI investor, and she has a very specific thesis about AI needing to really be empowering of humans. So that's where she places her investments. And then she has a bunch of folks on her podcast, which I have found the interviews to be very interesting. So that's my new sort of favorite. It changes sort of monthly.
No, I get it. I go on a history bent and then I go back to AI or then I go to leadership. So unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, I listen to a lot of workout. And a lot of people say that I don't look very approachable because I'm making faces. But a lot of times I'm reacting to something that's going on in the podcast, but they think I'm reacting to them and it's not. I'm like, I'm not even here mentally. I'm just going through the motions. So where can people find and engage with you?
Well, as I said, I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's probably the smartest place to engage with me. I do pay attention to the comments in my posts, except when they go viral, and then there's many hundreds, and then it takes me a couple weeks to catch up with those, as well as direct messages there. That's a great way to stay in touch.
Fantastic. And if you had a one-liner outside of strike AI in HR, what would your one-liner for this episode be?
Mm, pick your most important business process and source purpose-built AI for it.
Love it. Well, I enjoyed the banter. I love when people challenge how I think about something. So I'm probably going to message you and go, okay, I need to unpack this a little bit more. So, but I got your email. I'll hunt you down. Thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Trent, thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Human Capitalist. This channel is all about community, so comment, subscribe, and join the conversation. This is Trent Cotton, your Human Capitalist, signing off. Remember, invest in yourself, own your potential, and keep building your own human capital. I'll see you next time.